Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, Pack_day. I haven't been yawning at all, but it's just, oh, you're doing the intro? Good time for a yawn. Okay, there's a lot that I want to do, and there's an urge because we are in peak off season. Obviously, a lot of people have said, okay, the draft's over, now I have to start getting stupid. And I'm seeing lots of stupid, and the urge to just hang in there and do stupid every day and yell at stupid every day is so strong, and I really want to do it. But we're going to have to, not to say that we can't end up there, but that's not necessarily the goal today. I want to get through a little bit of news and notes and talk about kind of where we're at in the off season as we plug along. Also, what else? Oh, the free agency. I do want to touch on that. I had Sal dig into that a little bit yesterday, which I will say I was kind of like, it's legit, to be honest. Kind of have expected something stupid. I don't necessarily disagree with him, but I want to take a look myself and go through that a little bit to see, again, as I look at the team, I struggle to find areas. I don't want this to sound wrong because I don't want it to act like we have a perfect team because we don't, but I just struggle to find areas where I feel like we don't have at least some questions. We don't have some guys where I would say, let's see what we have first. Let's let these guys get in the building. Let's, get some pads on, get a ball thrown around a little bit and see what we have. There may be issues that arise where we say this guy isn't ready. There may be more injuries. If Marshawn Lloyd tweaks something, it's like, oh, for crying, here we go. Okay, let's start looking. But pending that, I'm kind of in let's wait and see mode. But again, we'll take a peek. But let's go through some NFL news here real quick. So I might as well start off with this as we continue down this path of trying to decide who gets to display what NFL to which people and for how much money, which has admittedly been mostly a nightmare. Again, I continue to hope that this will settle at some point where somebody will be like, okay, you win, you get to display the games, or here's how it's going to go, and here's how much money. And the people are happy with how much money, and the fans are happy with how much money, and we all agree. But it's just not it's not quite getting there. So if you remember, not too long ago, kind of a big story and kind of a weird one actually. The NFL sold NFL Network and Red Zone to Disney ESPN. I think the NFL gets like a 10% stake in the company plus whatever they pay, or maybe that was it. I don't know. It's obviously a massive thing to get 10% of Disney as a result. So the NFL is making some investment plays, I guess, while moving the distribution a little bit off their hands, I guess. I don't know. Pretty wild. Well, Comcast, basically cable TV, the contract between Comcast and the NFL for all those channels expired. And now Disney, instead of the NFL, is in charge of negotiating the new deal with Comcast to distribute the football to people on cable. Apparently, Disney has come to the table asking for double the money that the NFL was asking from Comcast in order for Comcast to be able to continue distributing NFL Network and Red Zone. Disney is also demanding that the channels are put into more expensive cable packages, so millions of people who don't want them would still have to pay for them indirectly. So even if you're not interested in the NFL, you want to get this other package that has frickin' the History Channel on it. Now you have to pay, twice the price for the History Channel because Disney's demanding that the NFL channel be packaged into that package. Apparently Comcast, probably fairly so, said get bent. And so Disney has now pulled those channels from the Xfinity lineup. Xfinity is under the Comcast umbrella. I don't know, Comcast, Xfinity, cable TV, whatever. It's all bundled together. So there's no more NFL on there. So Comcast is saying basically Disney bought these channels and is already jacking up the price. In fact, the official statement here, let me just pull this up. Ironically, this comes from Awful Announcing, which has made itself a legitimate news site, apparently. Comcast has passed along an updated statement to Awful Announcing directly, saying, quote, Disney ESPN acquired NFL Network and Red Zone just months ago and are already demanding double the fees for the same content. Their distribution demands would also make millions more pay for channels they don't watch. We remain open to continuing to talk and reach a fair deal for our customers. Disney apparently claims that they said, well, we'll keep providing the channels to your customers during these negotiations if you want. And Comcast said, no, get bent, and I guess it turned them off. That's what Disney's claiming, which wouldn't be all that surprising, I suppose, for Comcast to be a little bit more forceful to the table and say, nope, goodbye, and close the door. That also puts a lot more pressure on Disney when all the customers who want it start getting upset, and then you just say, well, yeah, they basically pulled it because they want double the money. The good news is, for the most part, not to say that there's nothing interesting on those shows right now. Well, first of all, the good news is not too many people have cable anymore. Beyond that, it's May, and I would guess that both sides are playing hardball at this point, knowing that they need to reach an agreement by the football season, and I'm assuming that they will. But it doesn't really look good to ESPN, Disney. In other news, the Indianapolis Colts have declined Anthony Richardson's fifth-year option for 2027, so that kind of reinvigorates the could the Packers, or anybody for that matter, probably somebody will, trade for Anthony Richardson. And I think it moves the needle in that direction because the Colts obviously have indicated they don't plan on him being a long-term solution. That also is going to end up probably lowering his overall price because the Colts trying to come back saying, oh, you're taking a guy off our hands is no. We're trying to jump in line before you cut him because we know you're cutting him next year. So with that being on the table, I don't know what the asking price is. I certainly wouldn't give up a ton. I mean, to be real, we gave up a seventh for Malik, and that worked out better than anyone could have ever expected. The Colts maybe will try to leverage that and be like, hey, look what happened with Malik. The Titans got screwed on that deal. I think we should get a sixth or a fifth or something, get bent. I just, honestly, I don't know that I want to give up a seventh for him. I don't know that, I mean, Richardson is more athletic, but it's hard to argue at this point. I mean, the odds that we're going to be able to turn him into a quarterback the same way Matt LaFleur did with Malik, I'm just not so sure. But we did acquire, or will acquire, quite a few more picks next year. And again, I know they want to take a look at our current quarterback room. We haven't really gotten a chance to look at, what's his name? Kyle McCord. He's a 2025 guy, so he's relatively new. I know there's some people around that have talked about McCord as being somewhat of an intriguing guy. So, again, how desperate are the Packers to go out and make a move that costs them compensation when they have some sort of on the team right now? And by I just mean like, we want to take a look. You go get Anthony Richardson, you're basically telling McCord to go pack his stuff. Or Ritter. I don't really know. I mean, and I'm not excited about what we have. I'm just saying you made the move to go get him and take a look at him. Might as well take a look at him. You also have Kyron Drones for whatever that is worth. And again, another guy you're going to want to take a look at first. Now, if you think he can at least be Desmond Ritter, in other words, we think Richardson can be our backup quarterback, and then we'll have McCord and Drones to kind of compete for that number 3 spot, then that would make a little bit more sense. And honestly, it's not a very high bar. Desmond Ritter is not a good quarterback. We don't have any good quarterbacks, so it could make sense from the standpoint of if we're going to have a bad quarterback, let's at least give Matt LaFleur the opportunity to get creative with a guy that is shockingly athletic and can make plays with his legs. And we'll try to get Matt to simplify the passing for him. But my assumption is that the Colts are going to kind of hold strong. They're going to probably ask for kind of a mid-round pick, like a 4th-round pick, and nobody's going to be interested in that. And so the Colts are going to kind of wait it out, let teams realize, oh, crap, we don't have anything. Maybe they start to get a little bit more desperate. Maybe some injuries happen, and somebody's willing to, they're not in any rush to move Anthony Richardson. Their only real rush is needing to get something done, because once the season comes to a close and he's about to be off your books, that's when the clock starts to work against you. Now you have to get a deal done before he hits free agency, and if you don't, then you get nothing for him. So it is somewhat of a balancing act of we got to get something. The time right now is working in our favor, but if we don't seal a deal at that point, we're in trouble. But I think their play is to wait for desperation. I would hold strong in the fact that I certainly wouldn't give up more than a sixth. Let's put it that way. And I only say that because we've never had under Gutekunst a single good sixth-round pick, so it really doesn't make it's not a huge distinction between a sixth and a seventh in my mind. But that would entirely come down to Brian Gutekunst and their staff's evaluation of, or Matt LaFleur's, probably more importantly, evaluation of Richardson and whether they believe that he can kind of do things the way Malik did, or at least to somewhat of a lesser level. Malik was an anomaly beyond comprehension. As I've said, he was arguably the best quarterback in football when you look at what he did for the time that he did it. Shocking how good he was. In other news, Calais Campbell is off the free agent market. I know there was a lot of talk about him possibly coming to the Green Bay Packers. That is not going to happen. He has signed a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens for the 2026 season. It will be his 19th season in the league. He will turn 40 years old right before the season starts, September 1st. How, there are certain guys like Julius Peppers. Oh no, here goes the microphone. Like Julius Peppers and whatnot. They have freak DNA. A lot of football players have freak DNA. But there are certain guys that are freaks among the freaks. And if you can play, quarterback and kicker and stuff, okay, fine. It's a little bit different. Kicker is something that clearly doesn't really degenerate in the same way that a lot of other things do, like, speed and acceleration and all that kind of stuff. Quarterback, if you can keep your mental game right, as we've seen from Peyton Manning, your body can deteriorate to almost nothing. That guy, I feel like, couldn't throw beyond 25 yards. They still went and won a Super Bowl. But to play a position like Calais Campbell does or Julius Peppers does, to be an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, a pass rusher, and to be able to do it at 40 years old, that is insane to me. But I believe the deal is worth about $5.5 million, which, again, a lot of people are going to look at that and say that's easy money. Of course you need to do that. But as I've given the lecture numerous times, we need to stop pretending that our understanding of how good the person is the correct one, and the version of what the value is the incorrect one. In other words, he's worth $12 million and 5.5 is a steal. No, what 5.5 is telling you is that's his current value at 40 years old, which is to say the NFL broadly doesn't think Calais Campbell has very much to offer at this point. $5.5 million is absolutely nothing. Still a massive credit to him to be playing at 40. But this was sort of a borderline Jair deal where it's like, there's nothing here, but whatever, it's basically free, so come on, let's see if you can do something. And then he was benched. The Browns are once again going to be a hilarious thing as, we've had some reporters come out and basically just say, like, Deshaun Watson has to be the guy. And then that, of course, causes an uproar because Shedeur Sanders has these obsessive fans that are just beyond obsessed with him and how elite he is and everything else. He was basically the lowest graded quarterback in football last year, by the way. But it is hilarious how adamant people are that any of these guys need to be quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders suck at being... Why do we care? Why is it such a storyline? Which piece of garbage quarterback that can't play is going to be the starting quarterback of one of the worst franchises in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns? But here we are, seeing who gets to captain that frickin' sinking ship. There is a lot of talk about Russell Wilson retiring, and of course, because this is just what you do now, it's just the pipeline, talks about him possibly joining the TV world. I don't think there's anything worse on planet Earth than subjecting people to Russell Wilson talking on television for a long time. I mean, you almost never hear him talk. I haven't heard him say a single word in like 3 years. And the last thing I remember him saying was Mr. Unlimited, and he got mocked for like 3 straight years, and his career went straight to hell. I don't need to hear his motivational slogans on television. That sounds like torture. But part of me thinks it would be funny, and I kind of want it to happen. So we'll see what happens. But pretty wild career Russell Wilson had. To be a mid-round pick, to be good enough to like immediately take over a job. The coaches knew what they had, play very, very well, Super Bowls, dominate, and then just, I suck now. Just a hard crash. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll pivot to some more Packers news. If there's any NFC North stuff, we'll touch on that. Actually, there is at least one thing. We'll do that in Packers news, and then we'll get into free agency. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So, first of all, one of the things that's popped up, and I think it's kind of cool, apparently the Minnesota Vikings are the favorite to host the 2028 NFL Draft. Some believe Cincinnati has the inside track for 2029. The 2027 Draft is set to take place in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. That's going to be freaking interesting for sure. You got Kevin Seifert, who is the ESPN Minnesota Vikings guy, says nothing is official, but in league circles, Minnesota's bid is considered the favorite to be awarded the 2028 NFL Draft. Would be centered in and around U.S. Bank Stadium. I mean, the rest of the NFC North has gotten it. Started with Chicago. We had Michigan, Detroit, and we had Green Bay last year. At least two of those went very, very well. I think Minnesota could be solid. Assuming, similar to Green Bay, I mean, if the weather sucks, that's not fantastic. But the weather cooperated beautifully for Green Bay, which obviously is almost identical weather to Minneapolis. They're on about the same line there. But I think it'd be a good draft. I wouldn't talk trash about it. I think it'd be a good one to go to be honest, if that were to be a thing. We'll have to see. But I'll go so far as to say fingers crossed that Minnesota gets that one. Plus, we can close the door on the NFC North and officially tell everybody Green Bay officially had the best NFL draft of the group and one of the best of all time. I'll concede Chicago's up there, but I'm saying Green Bay was better. I also thought this was hilarious, and I don't know if you saw this on social media, but Malik Muhammad, the cornerback that I was a fan of, my son was a fan of, a lot of people were a fan of. And as I've said, the guys that I like, the Packers don't draft, the Bears do. That track record holds strong. Well, Malik Muhammad was home with his family, and when he got drafted, there was no reaction. His family was going nuts. They were screaming, they were cheering, and he was sitting on his phone just staring straight ahead. What's even funnier than that, what makes it worse, is that it was so bad that he put out a statement. He actually felt the need to put out a statement about his reaction when he got drafted. His statement says, "In light of my draft night video going viral, I wanted to take a moment to address it. Hearing my name called was a dream come true. I was overwhelmed with excitement and emotion." No, you weren't. That guy just sat there, dude. He was more bored than he's ever been in his life. He says, "I'm beyond grateful for the opportunity and ready to continue my career at the highest level. Can't wait to get to work and do everything I can to make the city of Chicago proud. Thank you to the Bears organization, Bear Down." I always love when they put like the hashtag Bear Down as though he has any idea about that. Like he had to be coached on. Packers do too with some of the Go Pack Go stuff or whatever. But yeah, that was hilarious that it was so bad. His reaction was so... I don't want to necessarily say negative, but I'm going to be biased and say it was so negative that he had to put out a press release about it. That's amazing. We got Edge's alter ego in the comments says, "Your agent did a good job writing this. No worries. No one wants to be a Bear. 4 short years till free agency." Pivoting to some more Packers stuff, John Sigler, who is lead Saints writer for Saints Wire, part of USA Today Network. He says, "New Orleans Saints haven't drafted many kickers over the years, but a trade by another team reportedly kept them from picking Florida Gators specialist Trey Smack." And then Basarski, the Packers YouTuber, says, in quotes, "He would have been there in the 7th, mocking everybody that says that. Bottom line is, a lot of teams were eyeing him up, and they were absolutely going to jump all over Trey Smack. The Packers knew it, and they bundled their 2 picks, again, in a very weak class, and went up and sniped them. And I guarantee you the Saints weren't the only team that were eyeing him up. Some relatively good news on the rookie class. 5 of our 6 draft picks are already signed. 5 signed their 4-year rookie contracts on May 1st. Chris McClellan, Denai Dennis Sutton, Jagger Burton, Domani Jackson, and Trey Smack all signed their deals. Brandon Cisse remains unsigned, and I bring that up only because the second round has been a real pain lately. And I think agents are holding out if you're a second round pick. They did this last year. It was a very, very big deal that everybody was kind of holding out because they wanted to start getting some of the guarantees that first round picks were getting. And so I'm wondering if they're going to try that again. At some point, the NFL has to shut this down. At some point, it's like, I don't know exactly what they're angling for this year. But, you're always pushing for more and more. And right now, the second round, because the first rounders already have it. The third rounders know they're not going to get it. So the second round has been sort of the battleground of, compensation. The biggest argument comes down to being a fully guaranteed contract. How much of these contracts is guaranteed is kind of a staggered scale. So if your first round pick, you get a fully guaranteed contract. By the end, you're not really looking at a very, not much of your contract is guaranteed. And so, the NFL opened an absolute can when they started allowing fully guaranteed contracts into the second round. Some teams caved on that. Once that happened, I'm assuming they're going to try to keep pushing that more and more and more every year. So the next guy in line, I don't know how far it went as far as fully guaranteed. Anthony Belton last year was the guy, and he was one of the last ones to actually sign last year. Looks like 7 second-round picks last year got 100% fully guaranteed. And then, of course, that ups the pay scale for, the number 8 getting, 95%, 98% or something to that effect. So at this point, it probably is going to create some consternation. The guys that are in the top, let's say 7 to 8, are going to come into this saying, okay, this is the precedent now. We get 100%. I don't want to hear any whining about it. The NFL is probably going to push back and be like, come on now. But that's basically done. Then you got the guys at 9, 10, 11, 12 saying, we want fully guaranteed contracts now. And I doubt that reaches down to where 52 is, but 52 is still going to want to wait to see how much the pay scale or the guarantee scale has moved. So I would anticipate, despite the fact that we got a ton of these guys done quickly, that it might drag out again with the second round. Because again, once you crack that open, I don't know how we get away with getting this done without this kind of a thing happening every year. So it'll get done, but we got to see kind of how this plays out and hope that there isn't anything annoying happening as far as holdouts and everything else, which, did happen last year. Also, and I've mentioned that in and around this time, obviously it's happening right now, the rookie minicamp. Basically, the Packers are hosting 9 tryout players. They are invited. They're not a part of the 53-man roster, 90-man roster at this point, but they're allowed to come in and try out and work out and see if they can earn a spot. One of those guys is Chase Claypool. And I feel like we're looking at this in reverse. A lot of people are looking at Chase Claypool the same way the Bears did when they traded away, I think, like a second-round pick or something stupid for him, as this super high upside, talented, athletic guy, whatever. The reality is the fact that he's at a mini camp, at a tryout, like a walk-on, doesn't speak very highly of Chase Claypool. Whether or not he's able to make the team, I guess I don't super care. There's so much excitement about Chase Claypool. I mean, he's a free agent. You could just sign him. You know what I mean? Like, that nobody wants him. So, I mean, even if he is good enough, I mean, he is at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the barrel in a wide receiver room that doesn't need anybody. So, I wish him the best, and if it works out, it works out, and that's awesome. But I have no earthly idea what we're getting excited about here. I mean, I understand it's the offseason. This is where we get excited about guys that are backups and are never going to play because we pretend that they're actually going to play and they're going to be really good. But, I mean, if we're Packer fans, we're excited about Matthew Golden, right? We're excited about Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. Excited to see what Savion is this year. Chase Claypool, Okay, yeah. Maybe he can earn a spot as the number 5. That's fine, I guess. I guess if that's what we want to get excited about. But again, the it's almost an assumption, like a foregone conclusion. Like, bro, this guy's good. If he was good, he wouldn't be in that situation. Our wide receiver room, beyond the guys that I mentioned, are Bo Melton, Jacoby Keeney James, Will Shepard, Isaiah Nayer, and J. Michael Sturdivant. Now, excluding J. Michael Sturdivant because he is a UDFA, if this guy was 10% as good as people are making him out to be, why in the world do we have Bo Melton, Will Shepard, Jacoby Keeney James, and Isaiah Nayer on our current 90-man roster? And Chase Claypool is not even a consideration beyond, okay, fine, you can come to the rookie minicamp as like a walk-on tryout guy? I'm sorry, there's really nothing to get super excited about. And I keep seeing the angle of like, yeah, but Matt LaFleur, bro, like Matt LaFleur he's the exact guy that Matt LaFleur can make amazing. Oh, wow, okay. Great. Can't wait to see it. That should be fun. He's just a name that people recognize is all he is. He's never been a good football player. He's always been an overhyped football player who's never lived up to his expectation and is now completely bottomed out and is basically, this is a last gasp for him to make any kind of a continuing career for himself. And again, maybe he will succeed, but it's going to be at the very, 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 very bottom of the roster, and that certainly doesn't mean he even makes the 90-man. He is not competing with Savion Williams. He is competing with Jacoby Keeney James. So, not to be a giant wet blanket, but the reaction to him has been way over the top. It's not even like he's a Packer. We didn't pick him up as a free agent. We didn't put him on the roster. We just allowed him to walk into our building and compete with a bunch of guys that didn't get picked up as UDFAs who are desperately trying to get a spot. That's the level he's at right now. So I don't know if it's hype out of boredom or what. The other thing, and I'm not going to go on a rant on this. Maybe I'll save it for tomorrow, but I'm just scrolling through things, and I see Carson Caldwell posted his pressure rate on social media and showed who he's better than. And I'm reading the comments, and it's the most lazy analysis in the world against him. But the hilarious thing is, these are the same lazy analysis type people that are going to come out the other side talking about, boy, oh boy, I don't know, we might have something here. This guy, they get excited about everybody that's ever had a name in football at any level ever, but are going to come back and judge Van Ness. Which, by the way, you put both of these guys on the open market. Guess which one everybody swoons over, and guess which one can't get a job anywhere in the NFL. But I'm sure that's just because all 32 teams are stupid and you're a genius. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so one of my least favorite things in the world to do, look at free agents. First of all, the biggest reason that I don't like it is because it's such a unbelievably difficult thing to do. Let me see if I can figure out real quick how many people are just on this list here real quick, just for the sake of illustration. First of all, I don't know if there is an official list of free agents. My guess is this would be the list of people who had a contract last year that don't have a contract this year. But I'm guessing there's a lot more people out there trying to get jobs. I mean, as evidenced by mini camps, and then how many people are not even invited to those mini camps. So in other words, they're effectively free agents. There's really just no chance of them getting jobs. But just based on the people that are listed, for example, on Over the Cap as free agents, there are 318 of them. So I don't know if it's just like a me thing where I see that and it's like, dude, where do I even begin here? I can't go through 318 different people to say, where this could kind of maybe work out, or I don't know. And then if you try the process of elimination, nobody's left. If you say, well, get rid of everybody that's over 30. Okay, well, there goes almost everybody. If you say over 30 and get rid of everybody under, $1 million or 5 million, because it's not going to be, they're basically just not worth anything, there's nobody left. In fact, let me do that real quick just as a fun exercise. And I'm not saying this is what you have to do. I mean, you could find somebody Javon Hargrave's over 30, but just if you were to do that, First of all, let's see. Older than 30 are 146 of the people on this list. 30 and older would be almost 200 of the people on this list. But then again, how are you 29 and you don't have a job? You must completely suck. That's the problem with free agency. How bad are you that you're not even 30 and you can't find a job? You must be awful. But then if you're old, it's like, well, that's why you can't find a job. By the way, keep in mind, the whole point here is these are people that can't find a job. That's what free agency is. We act like it's the super elite talent store. These are people that cannot find a job. You know, sometimes we talk about how if that guy ever hit free agency, he'd be gone in 5 seconds. That's not these guys. But let's burn through, I don't know, let's go to the top. So Spot Track, for example, sorts them by their previous contracts average per year. So there's some superstars here. So at the top is Tyreek Hill. Do I want Tyreek Hill? I do not want Tyreek Hill. How about Stephon Diggs, which hilariously, I just saw a thing that there's rumors Stephon Diggs could go to the Bears. I can't imagine that's true. I can't imagine that's true. What is your obsession with freaking wide receiver? I think it's all Ryan Poles knows is wide receiver. I think he thinks that's just what builds football teams, is elite wide receiver play. After that is left tackle Taylor Decker, who left the Detroit Lions. Remember, he didn't retire. He just said, I don't want to be here anymore. Now, part of the issue there, presumably, is a contract dispute. He wants a bunch of money, and the Lions are like, yeah, you're old and broke down. You got a shoulder thing. You're going to be 33 years old. You're not getting top money anymore. So this is like several of these guys. It's not that there isn't something there in terms of talent. Tyreek is a big question mark as far as the injuries. It's a genuine risk. Now, if he's willing to take one of those Jair contracts or something, which it might not need to get that low, but I'm just, for example, one of those, I'm basically going to offer you nothing. Do you want to come in and see what happens? Then he would get a job pretty quickly, I would assume. Although, again, you're giving up spots to other people. So I don't know that that's an automatic. I also would assume Tyreek would never take a contract like that. What's the point? Stephon Diggs, again, similarly, he's clearly not an elite. I shouldn't say clearly. He's not an elite player anymore like he used to be. He's not one of the top 10 guys. I don't think he's a top 20 guy or whatever anymore. And he's probably reached that point of falling off his cliff. It's kind of like when Keenan Allen went to Chicago. The year before, he was elite. The year he was in Chicago, he was dog crap. Part of that I blame on Chicago. But he's never revived his career since. Anywho, Tyreek Hill, no. Stephon Diggs, no. Taylor Decker, I think some people would argue for. But again, this is the problem. If you go get Taylor Decker, we spend way too much money on a guy with injury issues that is 33 years old and a short-term thing. And also, you've basically doomed a first-round pick who's now getting his first opportunity to start at left tackle to essentially being cut. Because now he is not going to start, and we're not going to see him. And at that point, our assessment of him has to be, I guess you don't get to stay, because we're not going to give him a big contract. I don't even think he would have earned a fifth-year option. Unless he's willing to agree to some small contract because he hasn't shown anything, but it doesn't make any sense. Marshawn Lattimore is a free agent. That's another one of those guys where he's a very big name. People know him as a guy who was an elite player. I'm sure a lot of people would immediately jump on that. He was very briefly a good player. He spent many more years being a massively overrated player because of his name and because of where he was drafted. I'm sure if he was a Packer fans would assume he's a bust because the standards are infinitely higher when you are a Packers draft pick and a first-round pick as opposed to anybody else in a first-round draft pick where you can be kind of good for a year and you're a great pick and a great player. But if you're a Packer and you do what Marshawn Lattimore did, you would be another Goody bust loser jagoff. Trayvon Diggs is still floating around out there. Again, I kind of mentioned how I think you could argue that he would be a good fit in the system. However, we've already gone out and done our free agent thing at corner. And we also just released him. So, that was before we got our defensive coordinator, which is where you could argue it would make sense. But I don't see us doing that because, again, we not only did our free agent thing, but then we drafted 2 corners. So I think we're done at that position. Debo, no thank you. He hasn't been big in quite a while. He's 30 years old, and we don't need more receivers. Rodgers would be hilarious, and if we could talk him into coming back to being our backup, which would never happen, I would jump on that in half of a second. Joel Bitonio, the Packers would never do. I probably would. He is going to be 35 years old. He's not. So he kind of peaked in the 2020 to 2022 range, which, again, this is where the whole, just wait 3 years thing. I've never seen, ever, in my time looking at PFF, a thing where you go here, and then in year 2, you take a step, and then in year 3, then you've peaked, and that's just what you are for the rest of it. That's not a thing. This is a guy that peaked after year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So his years 7, 8, and 9, with 8 being his best year, were his best years. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. He was good his entire career. His first drop-off came around 2023, but his drop-off means he now is a run blocker in the 60s and a pass blocker in the 70s. Now, maybe he's just done, and that's why he can't get a job now. That's probably the case where, I don't know, they've assessed him as, he just doesn't have it anymore. But beyond that, I know the Packers are, they've got their offensive line. They got their guys. They got their 3 guys and everything's good. And to be fair, I don't want him to replace Belton. Belton needs to get an opportunity. I'd much rather have him be a left guard, which is what his job was. But, of course, they love our left guard in Banks, so we have to be stuck with that. So would I? Yeah, I probably would have moved on from Banks and then brought in a guy like Bitonio and then desperately tried to find a replacement for Bitonio. But we're not having a serious conversation about that. Jack Conklin, right tackle, no. Jonah Williams, right tackle, no. Hassan Reddick, yeah. I've already talked about that. I think we need additional pass rushers. Hassan Reddick has a long, storied history with our defensive coordinator. It seems obvious to me that we're not going to do it. That is, unless Hassan, they view him as worth X amount of dollars, and they've decided that Hassan is asking for too much. To be fair, the Packers have to view this as, Van Ness will step into that edge 2 role. So when Micah comes back, you are paying Hassan to be a 3. That's going to be one of the biggest issues, is I don't think the Packers are willing to pay him to be more than a 3, which, to be fair, dude, you're going to be 32, and Hassan Reddick is a smaller guy. You could use the reduced snap counts. It's for your own good, bro. You get a large amount of snap counts through the first quarter of the season, and then we get to dial you back for the rest of the season. It sounds like a sweet deal. The only problem is we're going to pay you as such. Now, with that also comes the fact that he hasn't been really very good since his time in Philly. I'm not even going to say his time with Gannon, because he was no, he wasn't with Gannon. He was with the Jets and then Tampa Bay. But that is kind of the risk, right? He was with Gannon. He was very good with Gannon. And then he went to the Jets, and he was dog crap. And then he went to Tampa Bay, and he wasn't as much dog crap, but he still wasn't very good. 60 pass rush grade, 34 pressures and 3 sacks on 308 attempts. No, I don't care about the sacks. That has to do with limited opportunities. What I care more about is his pressure rate. How many times do you beat the guy in front of you is a much more important metric to determining how good of a pass rusher you are than how many times you tackled the quarterback. The difference between 3 and 6 is almost non-existent, okay? So that's stupid. And I don't even think 3 is terrible considering 300 pass rush attempts. That said, he had 21 sacks, PFF sacks, with Gannon in 2022 and then 13 in 2023. I look, this is one I would defer to the Packers. If they felt that they could get if they can get 50% of the Hassan Reddick glory that they had with Gannon, they would pay him in a second. They're not paying him. I'm very comfortable with the assessment that, if Gannon isn't pounding the table for him, then I don't want him. David Njoku. I've always loved Njoku, but no. Aaron Rodgers, again, no. Bosa, this is who Sal talked about. And again, he kind of sold me on it. Again, listen, I'm probably only ever going to say yes to pass rushers. And I didn't push him in the direction of pass rushers, just to be clear. That was not my thing. My instruction was literally as Sal said. And granted, I didn't call him because he's an AI. This is a little fibbing there, but my only instruction was, and I try to keep it as vague as possible because I don't want to interject. I want Sal to have his own thoughts and sometimes it's so stupid. I'm like, bro, we got to think about this for a second. Are you sure? Because I don't want idiots on my network if at all possible. Like intelligent analysis, so this is rough for me. But I listened. I listened. He said Joey Bosa, and I listened to the whole thing. And I'm like, bro, that I might be all right with that. He had an 86 pass rush grade last year. He's only 30.8 years old. Now, the concern apparently at this point is that he's kind of a situational, maybe more of just a pure third down kind of a guy. He doesn't have very good run defense, which, yeah, that fell off last year quite a bit. I mean, his tackling's never been that good. That's not that uncommon. He used to be very good against as a run defender for sure. And maybe last year's pass rush productivity was seen as kind of a fluke. It did come in a flurry between weeks 2 and 9. Not to say he was bad after that. It just, there's a very clear delineation. He had just 1 sack after that. Only had 2 games with pressures over 2, and those were the final 2 weeks. So maybe it's seen as a little bit fluky, but I mean, he played all year. And from what I can tell, I mean, it doesn't look like, so maybe 2022, 2023, he was battling some injuries there. I guess he's never actually played a full 17-game season. What did he miss? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17. So he missed, 1 game? Whoop-de-frickin-do. Dude at 30 years old misses 1 game due to injury. Who doesn't miss 1 game due to injury? Jordan Love can't play a full 17-game season. I don't want him cut. But again, look, the overall standard here is I would like to add a pass rusher. And maybe I'm too low on Barron Sorrell and Dani Dennis Sutton. I am very concerned, though, that one of those guys, none of whom have proved anything. And again, I would like 4 pass rushers. Right now, to start the season, we have Van Ness, this is the other thing that's weird. Packer fans wanted to push back on me about the pass rush thing being a need, but also think Van Ness sucks. I think Van Ness is very good, and I think it's a need. I'm just confused by this. Maybe it's because everyone thinks Barron Sorrell is elite. I don't know. But I would like 4 pass rush, not necessarily elite, but 4 guys that you can at least count on and not be like, oh no, that freaking guy's on the field. Right now, there's 1 guy that I trust. I'm hopeful that Barron Sorrell takes a step. I'm hopeful that Dani Dennis Sutton can at least be like an Inigbare type of guy to start. Obviously, long-term, it'd be great if he was beyond that. But I can't really expect much week 1. And as for Colin Oliver, I mean, I've never really had super high expectations. He's an off-ball linebacker we're trying to convert to be kind of a linebacker / edge. In fact, I think they even said they wanted to start him at linebacker and then start moving him in that direction. So I don't have any reason to necessarily believe he's going to just be a dominant pass rusher. He did play 31 snaps week 18 against Minnesota. He had 2 pressures on 17 attempts, which is fine, 0 sacks, which is understandable, 53.5 pass rush grade, which isn't good, 47.8 run defense, and a 27 tackling grade. Very small sample size, but again, who should I have confidence in? And even when Micah comes back, okay, well, they're going to be off the field on occasion. When the next group comes in, the 3 and the 4 are on the field. Let's say it's Sorrell and Sutton. Maybe Brenton Cox, I don't know, but probably Sorrell and Sutton. Do I feel good about that? No. Would I be okay to a situational pass rusher? Absolutely I would. Abso-frickin-lutely I would. Now, to be fair, to counteract that, we should hopefully have some interior pressure, but I still would like to at least set a baseline decent kind of a standard. Barron Sorrell, I mean, you want to talk about, he was at almost 5% as a pressure rate. That's horrifying. And he played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games. He didn't start. He started in 1, and he got a sack in that game that he started, although sub 10% pressure rate. But again, fans don't care. You can be a bad pass rusher the entire game, but then get 1 sack and you're a hero. 24 bad pass rush reps and 1 sack. Nailed it. But, whatever. I'm just saying. I think if I were to go in a direction, it would be somebody like, but now I don't know what Bosa's looking for, but his last contract was for $12.6 million average. I don't know what number threes are getting out there, but I feel like if he would take anything under 10, I understand we're tight on money because we're trying to get these contracts done. We have, in my mind, 3 more contracts we're trying to get done. And I haven't looked at that in terms of potentially what could that do to our salary cap. I'm guessing it's going to do a little bit of damage. Granted, it's always backloaded, so the first year is not going to be massive in terms of, remember, you have to, whatever their first year is, you have to subtract what they're already getting. So we might be looking at contracts where we're essentially breaking even anyways. I don't know. But I get that money may be tight, and we don't want to hinder any negotiation by tying up money that we could have used as leverage to get some of these contracts done. And some of them may not get done. There's no guarantee that they're going to come to an agreement on what the contract should be. I don't know the status of the contract negotiations. They may not be going very well. You could look at like Christian Watson, where maybe they're trying to lowball him because of his injuries, and Watson saying, no, I'd rather bet on myself or something. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe we're not getting all these deals done. In which case, if you step away from the table, I wouldn't mind it if you turned your guns on somebody like that. Again, Hassan is the bigger question mark because he's just straight up bad. But is it because he's just bad, or would he benefit to getting back to, with Gannon? And you probably get him for dirt cheap because he's been bad. Bosa's just been consistently good, and he's been healthy since like 2022 for the most part. I don't know why. There must be just some serious injury risks and a disdain for his ability to help in the run game, which is weird because he's a massive human being that used to be very good at it. I mean, you think there's still something left in there. But even as a pure pass rusher, who doesn't want that? There's obviously a lot there. Jonnu Smith, again, the tight ends, no. The tackles, no. Defensive tackles, no. Russell Wilson at quarterback, no thank you. I mean, I'd be open to it, I guess, as a like baseline. Maybe we can sneak out a win kind of thing, and who knows? Maybe Matt LaFleur with Russ could actually revive a little bit, and he could play decent for a couple games. I don't want to dismiss him because he's a goofball necessarily, but I kind of do. Another defensive tackle, no. Corner, I think we're done with that conversation. So really, I mean. Maybe you could say linebacker, but even that, we already did our free agent thing and we have our guys. So I don't think there's any conversations to be had for me. Wide receiver, no. Interior, it would have to be a depth piece, but are you going to go out and pay a free agent to be a backup offensive lineman that maybe doesn't play all year? That doesn't make any sense. So no. Safety, no. I think edge is really the only guys that I would be looking at. And I would honestly be looking quite hard at that. And it just becomes a question of, again, and this is where it could also work out because I'm okay with short term. I'm okay with being a little bit older and, maybe a guy that can't handle a heavy workload because, again, I only need you fresh at the beginning of the season. That's where the 30-plus-year-old guys are at their best. Then we dial down your snap counts pending any other injuries. But that should work out best for both of us. The only thing is I'm going to pay you as such. And who knows, maybe Bosa doesn't want that. Bosa's thinking I'm still that dude. I want big money, and that's why he can't get a contract. And, maybe they just don't like Hassan very much. So what does that leave you with? It leaves you with we got Bryce Huff, Leonard Floyd, Gross Matos, who's never really been very good, Von Miller, who's awesome, but he's 37. Cam Jordan is 37. It's hard. That's the other thing that's hard to do is I don't know what they're asking for. I guess all I could really say is here's what they would be worth to me, and even that is tough because with half of these guys, I'm assuming there's something bigger going on. I mean, if Bosa's as good as his stats and grades say, that guy should be paid instantly. But there seems to be some very strong underlying concerns about his health, despite his ability to stay healthy. And maybe some skepticism about him actually being very good. I mean, it's almost shocking that the team that paid him last year wouldn't pay him to stay, considering how productive he was for them. I mean, the Bills lose a massive portion of their pass rush by losing Bosa, and they seem to be just fine with that, which in and of itself is a red flag. There's always Derek Barnett. It's another guy that worked with Gannon, but again, it concerns me a little bit that nobody's pounding the table for him, or maybe they're working on something behind the scenes, but he's not yet 30. He'll be 30 by the time the season starts, I believe. I mean, he's maintained about a 70 pass rush grade, which he honestly didn't even have. Well, he only played 12 snaps in 2022. He must have been injured. 2021, he was at like a 60-ish. He honestly was better when he went to Houston. He had a 74, 67, 69 pass rush grades. I mean, look, it honestly hasn't been that fantastic, which is why the guy can't really get a job being sub 30. He was with Houston, which we're talking best pass rush duo in football. And he managed almost a 70 pass rush grade, but sub 10% pressure rate. He did have 6 sacks on 209 pass rush attempts, which is very high, which again, I know is all anybody cares about. So I guess if you want sacks, this would be a pretty good guy to go get. I mean, I shouldn't say if you want sacks. If you want a high sack rate, he's not going to get you double digit because he's not going to get the opportunities to get the double digit sacks. But again, if Gannon's not pounding the table for him, why would I? Brandon Graham is still out there, similar situation. He is 38 years old. Exact same situation. He worked with Gannon. They had a good time back in the day, but he's pushing 40, so obviously it's not a thing. We'll see what happens. When I look at the team, here's the bottom line. I feel like we have one area where I don't feel great about our situation insofar as even if things are, even if they go well. Because, again, if I'm looking for 4 guys to be able to rotate, I'm not asking for elite. If Deny is, let's just use Enigbare as a baseline because I would say he's acceptable, but not in any way elite. If Barron Sorrell and Deny Dennis Sutton get up to that level, we have Van Ness and 2 Enigbares. I don't feel great about that. Even if Colin Oliver gets to that point, then we have 3 Enigbares, and we're completely wishful thinking. Even then, I'm kind of about it. And as far as burying guys, look, they're young. We're talking about sort of a 1-year patch. Deny can take his lumps. He can take his time. I mean, we're okay burying Lucas Van Ness, a first-round pick, for several years. We buried Rashawn Gary for several years. We're scared of burying Deny Dennis Sutton or Barron Sorrell. And by burying, I mean you're still in that second rotation, right? So I don't know. I this is an area where I don't really see a downside to it. So one of 2 things is happening. I guess you could say one of 3, but I don't like to think that money is going to stop them if they feel that it's a requirement. So one of the 2 things is they feel okay with the pass rush. They feel like, okay, we got Sutton. We've got the guys now to be able to do this with Brenton Cox. We feel comfortable enough as maybe a 4. I'm leaving Oliver out of it intentionally. I do think he's behind Brenton Cox, but we'll see. But they either feel good about it or I guess there are 3 things. They feel good about it. They want to wait and see what these guys can do before they panic. Or 3, they are desperately working toward it and they just haven't come to an agreement yet. And we'll find out soon enough when a deal gets done. I think the counteracting point to that would be, though, that I think you would go into the draft realizing that this is a position you can't necessarily solve in the draft. I mean, who knows? Maybe in the second round you grab a guy and then you grab another guy in the 4th or something, and then you did satisfy it and you didn't need to go out in free agency. But it just felt like one of those positions that I don't think we can fix this in the draft, and so we need to do something in free agency. And they haven't seemed to be urgent on that side of the ball. And who knows? Maybe they look at it as, Yeah, Micah's going to be out for a little bit, but when he comes back, we got a dominant pass rush. It's fine, which I would still disagree with when those guys go to the sideline. I love Van Ness. I love the interior. I love we're speaking pass rush here, the defensive tackles. I love Micah. After that, though, take away your starters. Take away Van Ness, Hargrave, Wyatt, and Micah. Put out a front four or five. I don't care. Put out whoever you want. Many defensive tackles as you want to put out there. Put out your best five and tell me how you're going to get a sack. If you're out there in base, right, let's just say, you have, Brenton Cox, Carl Brooks, Nazir Stackhouse, and Chris McClellan. Let's say McClellan is playing as a pass rusher. If you don't want to do that, then let's do Carl Brooks, Chris McClellan, and James Esther. And then as pass rushers, we have Brenton Cox it would be Baron Sorrell and Denai Dennis Sutton, let's say. And that assumes Sutton is going to win the job because he has to earn that. But let's just say he does. That's you feel good about that? All right. Again, fingers crossed on our fourth round picks here. We've had great luck in the fourth round, and we have Baron Sorrell and Denai Dennis Sutton who are fourth round picks. Maybe these guys end up being studs and we just have a dominant pass rush. But as I'm looking at it right now to start the season, we have Van Ness and nobody. Makes me a little nervous. But again, you lean on Hargrave and Wyatt to be able to create additional pass rush. And so it's like technically we have three good pass rushers on the front. All right, fine. I'll get over it. Try to maintain on passing situations. We have at least one of those guys out on the field. So, anyways, I guess in summary on the free agent thing, that's really the only place that I would lean. It's not, again, you could come up with, if we're talking about a low cost enough person, you could talk me into just about anything because who cares? But in terms of, sort of taking a swing at somebody that we think may need to start or something, it's not going to be anyone. It's not going to be offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, running back. Some people are going to want to talk corner, but there's nobody that's a corner that's going to start over, I don't know. We'll see about Cisse. I'm hoping he starts, but, I don't know. And then we have St. Juice, who we already picked up as a free agent. So as far as I'm concerned, we've got five guys with Bullard that are already there that the Packers are comfortable starting. Who are you bringing in to do what? So there you go. All right. I will leave it at that. You all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.